It started on a cold afternoon outside a small diner in rural Texas. A group of bikers had just pulled in after a long ride, covered in dust and road miles, looking for a warm meal and a place to rest their bones. But before they could even walk through the door, a tiny voice stopped them in their tracks. A little boy, barely 7 years old, tugged at the leather vest of the lead biker and said softly, "Mister, I'm hungry." What happened next turned that ordinary afternoon into a story no one in that town would ever forget. Stay with me till the end, because this isn't just about food. It's about what happens when compassion wears black leather and rides on 2 wheels. And before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more powerful true stories that'll restore your faith in humanity. And don't forget to tell me at the end from which part of the country you're watching this story. The rumble of engines echoed down the quiet 2-lane highway as the Steel Wings Motorcycle Club cruised toward the edge of town. The sun was sliding behind gray clouds, painting long shadows across the empty road. It had been a long ride, over 300 miles, and the men were hungry, tired, and ready to call it a day. Their leader, Jack Beer Dalton, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with a deep voice and a heart bigger than his Harley, motioned for the group to slow down. Up ahead was a small roadside diner called Maball's Kitchen. It looked like it hadn't seen a full parking lot in years, but it had one thing that mattered to bikers: hot coffee and open doors. As they parked, the town seemed almost frozen. The air was cold, the streets empty, and an old gas station across the road blinked its flickering sign. The bikers swung off their rides, their leather jackets creaking, boots hitting the pavement in unison. They were just a pack of tired men looking for a meal, until a small figure appeared from behind a rusted trash can. A little boy. He couldn't have been older than 7 or 8. His clothes were torn, his face pale, and his hair looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. But what caught everyone's attention was his eyes, wide, scared, and desperate. Bear noticed him first. "Hey, buddy," he said, lowering his voice so he wouldn't frighten him. "You okay?" The boy hesitated, glancing between the big men and the diner. Then, with a trembling voice, he whispered, "Mister, I'm hungry." The words hit like a punch to the gut. The chatter among the bikers stopped. The engines went silent. For a second, even the wind seemed to pause. Bear knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. "Where's your mom or dad, kiddo?" The boy looked down. "Mama's sick. She's at home. We don't got no food." Bear's throat tightened. He'd seen hard times in his life, growing up in the foster system, losing friends on the road. But there was something about the honesty in that child's voice that tore through his rough exterior. "Come on," Bear said gently. "You hungry, right? Let's get you something to eat." The boy nodded slowly, eyes glimmering with hope for the first time. Inside the diner, the warm smell of coffee and fried bacon filled the air. The waitress, Mabel, looked up as the door opened. Her expression shifted from surprise to caution as the group of bikers filed in. But then she saw the little boy holding Bear's hand, and her face softened instantly. "Morning, sweetheart," she said to the boy. "You want something to eat?" The boy nodded shyly. "Bring him the biggest plate of pancakes you got," Bear said, handing her a $50 bill. "And keep the coffee coming for the rest of us." Mabel smiled. "You got it." As the boy ate, the bikers sat around the booth, quietly watching. They were loud men by nature, used to jokes and road talk. But today was different. Something about that little boy reminded them all of a time they'd felt helpless, hungry, alone, forgotten. Bear leaned toward the boy. "What's your name, champ?" "Eli," the boy said through a mouthful of pancakes. "Well, Eli," Bear said with a small grin, "you just made a bunch of bikers your friends today." Hutu. When Eli finished his food, he leaned back with a full belly and a tired smile. Mabel came over with a fresh plate of bacon. "For your mama," she said gently. "You can take this home." But Bear wasn't done. "Hey, Eli," he said, "where do you live?" Eli hesitated, eyes flicking nervously to the window. "Down the road, near the old gas station, the house with the broken mailbox." Bear nodded. "How about we walk you home?" Eli's face brightened. "Really? Really?" Bear said. "No one rides alone, right, boys?" The group nodded, their leather vests glinting under the diner's neon lights. As they followed Eli down the cracked sidewalk, a light drizzle began to fall. The town seemed even quieter now. When they reached the small house at the end of the street, Bear's heart sank. The roof sagged, windows were taped with plastic, and the door was half hanging off its hinges. Ely turned to them. "Mama's inside." Bear crouched to his level. "You mind if we say who?" The boy nodded and opened the door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of damp and medicine. On a worn-out couch lay a thin woman, coughing softly under a blanket. She looked up in confusion as the bikers entered, her eyes widening. "Ma'am," Bear said kindly, removing his sunglasses. "One met your boy. He said you weren't feeling too good." She tried to sit up, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sir. He shouldn't be bothering folks. We're just having a rough time." Bear shook his head. "You ain't bothering anyone. We're just here to help." He placed the takeout bag on the table. "Here's some food, and we'll see about getting you a few groceries too." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Bear replied softly. "Just eat. Let us handle the rest." Over the next hour, the bikers transformed that little house into a place of life again. Some cleaned the kitchen, others fixed the front door. One of them, Tank, a big man with tattooed arms, drove back to town and filled his bike's saddlebags with canned food, bread, and medicine. By sunset, the house looked different. The smell of soup filled the air, the heater was running, and Ely's mother sat with tears streaming down her face as Bear handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Just something to get you through the month," Bear said. "It's from all of us." Inside the envelope was over $500. The woman covered her mouth in shock. Why are you doing this?" Bear looked at Ely, then back at her. "Because someone once did it for me." The room went silent except for the soft hum of the heater. As they prepared to leave, Ely ran up to Bear and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, mister," he whispered. "You're the nicest man I ever met." Bear smiled, blinking back tears. "You take care of your mama, all right, and remember, you're part of our family now." Ely nodded with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. 2 weeks passed, and life returned to normal for the Steel Wings Club. But one afternoon, Bear received a letter at the club's garage. It was from Ely's mother. She wrote, "You didn't just feed my boy. You gave us hope when we had none. I got a job at the diner now, and Ellie's back in school. He talks about you every day. He says when he grows up, he wants to ride a bike just like yours and help people the way you helped him." Bear folded the letter and stared at the horizon. "That's what it's all about," he murmured. "Not the miles. The moments." 2 months later, the club was riding again when they passed through the same town. Outside Mabel's diner, they saw something that made them all stop. Ely, standing next to his mom, holding a small cardboard sign that read, "Thank you, Steel Wings." The bikers pulled over. Ely ran straight into Bear's arms. "We've been waiting for you." Bear smiled. "Well, buddy, we're here." Mabel stepped out of the diner, wiping her eyes. "You boys started something in this town," she said. "People saw what you did that day. Donations started coming in for families in need. Folks say the bikers showed us what kindness really looks like." Bear chuckled. "Guess we're not so scary after all." Ely's mom smiled. "You're angels on 2 wheels." The group laughed, but deep down they knew she wasn't wrong. That night, as the sun set behind the diner, the Steel Wings revved up their engines. The sound rolled through the valley like thunder, not a warning, but a promise. A promise that wherever there was hunger, pain, or loneliness, they'd show up. Not for thanks, not for glory, but because sometimes being tough means having the courage to be kind. As they rode off, Ely waved from the roadside, his small voice echoing through the fading daylight. "Bear! I'll see you again." And Bear smiled beneath his helmet. "Count on it, kid." The story of that day spread through the county. From diners to schools to online forums, people shared it again and again, calling it the day the bikers brought back hope. And in a world that often forgets the power of small kindness, the Steel Wings reminded everyone that real strength isn't measured in horsepower. It's measured in heart. Sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths. That little boy didn't just ask for food. He reminded everyone that kindness can still exist in the most unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that restore faith in humanity. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Because no matter where you are, remember kindness can start with you.